Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a little bit of time here between the last build series. Well, we're back. Oh geez, just about stepped over my line there and tripped myself. We're on another one, and yeah, it looks a little bit different because, I mean, it's basically winter time. We got about an inch of snow overnight. Our lumber was all delivered this morning. Our columns will be here by lunchtime-ish, and that means nothing is covered with snow that we got to work with. So I'm gonna go around, get all of the elevations on all of the brackets that we've set already. That way we can make sure that they're, you know, perfectly in line with the grade and everything is level to that grade point. And then we've got these lumber piles that we'll go ahead and get through, get cut down and start prepping everything. That way when our columns show up, we make our columns and stand up our walls. So this is gonna be a 40 by 64 shop. So that means it will be completely insulated. It will have interior liner panel. There'll be a black ceiling. We'll have galvanized walls and black wainscot. There's going to be a porch that's gonna start 32 foot down the wall. So halfway down this wall, it's gonna come out at 8 foot and we're gonna wrap it all the way around. When you look at it from this side, you'll have two roof pitches coming up that will match the roof pitch on the main structure. So you'll kind of have this porch coming out and the gable up there. So it should look really good. And the color scheme we're going to use is burnished slate and red. So very rich colors. It's going to look amazing. We got, you know, a handful of windows, handful of overhead doors, two 12 by 12s, one on each end wall. So you can go all the way through. And then there's going to be a little bit of a small overhead door that's going to be in between one of these brackets here. It'll be kind of like a little party barn, man cave, storage area. So let's get to work. I'm excited, and I need to warm up, so that requires a little bit of work. Greg's with us, Zach's with us, and we're rocking the True Work bibs.
They're comfortable.
Comfortable and form-fitting.
They fit nice, and they look good.
Well, debatable.
That's important. That's important.
That's debatable. Zach's rocking some bibs over there.
That's debatable.
What?
They look good.
No, I mean, oh, I thought you said you look good. Yeah, okay, yeah. No, bibs look good. Bibs look good. No, we know that. Perfect. This is like getting near money. No, I'm 1 3/4.
Oh, okay. I thought that was a 3 right there.
Yeah. Which makes sense because we set the tops of these piers at 2 inches and our bracket is about a 1/4 inch. So in the perfect world, that's pretty much.
That's pretty good.
It's not bad. So when we dug these brackets in, or the piers, we set all the sonotubes to a designated number, which was 6 inches below top of finished floor. So our client is gonna be doing a 5-inch concrete slab on the inside. That's a floating slab. So what we wanted to do was we don't want those piers up in that slab. We always go 6 inches below finished floor. And you know, when you pour your concrete, when you set your bracket, all that stuff, there could be a little bit of movement. So even though we took the time with the laser to set those tubes, we're gonna come back through with the laser again and we'll check them. I do get a lot of questions about how to set grade, how to check grade, how to mark out your columns. I think the biggest thing is, you know where your grade mark is, know where your consistent, that consistent measurement is. For us, it's this concrete pad that the client has their in-ground pool built into. So that's what we wanted to match floor heights to. It's really easy. Anytime we need a dimension, we can set our laser at 0 there and then, you know, take off from that dimension. Now that I've got all of those grade marks on every bracket, that gives us a basically a benchmark anywhere on this project anytime from here on out. So the good thing about that is we can use that to check maybe the height of where our porch is going to go, where our windows are going to go, and it should ensure that our trusses are all at the exact same grade point when we hang them if we, you know, make our columns up correctly. So now that I have all of those benchmarks on my brackets, the only way that that works for you efficiently is if you then use a story pole that you can set to that benchmark somewhere on each column. and then have a repetitious, efficient way to make all of your marks. That way you know where all your trusses are, your wall girts are, where your windows are gonna go, your grade board, like all of those things can be determined one time, which is what I'm doing right now with this story pole board. And then I can use it throughout the entire life of the project. And I know that based off of the benchmark, it will be consistent on everything we do. It's like perfect timing. Perfect timing. Ohio Timberland, Jamie, way out there at the road, showed up just when I was ready for these things. I'll show you what I'm talking about with the center ply. So you can see that these are laminated. They're not a solid post. People always ask me about the solid columns and why don't we use solid columns? Really, there's a couple of reasons. One, because you can't really know what you have with a solid column. There could be weak spots in them. So by using, lumber, this is all southern yellow pine lumber, they can splice together and glue them together to form a much stronger, consistent column than with a solid column. But there's other benefits as well. Now, the major benefit that I have is, you can see this center block here, that can come out and we cut it down to the exact height. Remember, we got all those benchmarks in every column, and we can cut our center block to the exact height of where our truss is gonna set. And when it gets slipped in between those two outside plies, the ears is what we call them, we got a really good connection to the post at the truss location. So that's another really big benefit. And I guess the third benefit is that these are very dimensional. So I know what the dimensions are and they're consistent. So really, I think it's a great benefit to use laminated columns. Stronger, they stay straighter longer, and yeah, they look better. So there you go. I'll get them on the sawhorses, got that story pole, start putting them together.
7/8.
Inch and 7/8.
7/8.
Inch and 7/8.
3/4.
Inch and 3/4. Those dimensions are the ones that we got from our laser at the beginning, and all we're gonna do is hook the longest ear or the longest ply that we can. When it goes in the column, that'll be the longest spot that's touching the ground. So on this guy, I'm at 2 inches. I'm just gonna hook, make a little crow's foot at 2 inches. This one's inch and 7/8, and so on and so forth. So you can see here the center ply, and should be very easy to see. This guy here is loose, it comes loose. And now that we have these marks here for our truss location and all of our girt location, I can just take my square.
Yeah, I got you, bro.
Thanks, man. Thanks for being a team player.
You want to hit mine while you're at it?
I do. I thought you'd never ask. So what that's going to do now is it just generated my truss pocket. The truss will sit in here and sit right perfectly at truss height, which is 14 feet above grade. You see that?
So smooth.
Yeah, it's because it's got a sick Diablo Blade in it, dude. That's like the first thing that you should always do. That's a brand new blade for Texas. I put that in for Texas. Demo Demon with the amp tracking blade, carbide.
What does that do?
I don't know, but it sounds amazing, doesn't it? Got carbide tipped teeth, obviously, which is really nothing new. I mean, it seems like everything is going carbide.
Right.
But also it's got a special unique design on the teeth. The way the geometry is that it keeps you going straight for longer.
Track.
Exactly, which is, very common with like thin, crappy blades.
Jeez.
I need to put my ISO tunes in.
Yeah, me too.
Nothing works as good in the wintertime, man.
That's true.
Now, for those of you that are curious, we're using the jumbo nailer, and I've shared it many times, but this is the nail we're shooting, and I wish I had a regular strip of nails. You got one, Greg? Oh yeah. This is your standard framing nail that you see a lot of guys use to frame houses with. That's the jumbo nail. Okay, so that is why you can't just use any nail gun if you're gonna post frame. This has 0 power of holding compared to this guy. And I should do a test to show you the difference. But this blue coating, it's a, what is it, a diamond coat? Yeah, Fasco, which is Beck Fastening Group. These things are quite amazing. They're galvanized, and this coating not only adds additional holding power, but it also helps drive that nail in a lot more efficiently. The amount of time it saves from having to drive in a 20-penny ring shank nail is definitely worth your little bit extra money, because it definitely saves on the body. And here, you can have that back, Greg. I don't want that. Well, on your first day on the job site, you have a couple choices. You can run as fast as you can and get a bunch of stuff done that looks good, and that's called instant gratification. What we did was we spent most of the morning, actually all of the morning till lunch, just prepping, cutting, and getting things ready. So we knew our columns weren't going to be in till lunchtime, and so when they showed up, we started just building things, putting it together. Today doesn't look like much, but by the end of tomorrow, as long as the weather's nice, as long as it's not crazy and, you know, something doesn't break, knock on wood, tomorrow you should see quite a bit of change here on this site. Our trusses should be in tomorrow morning first run, so that's going to be good. And we've really got like everything kind of prepped, so once we start hanging these walls, it'll be game on, and we'll start making a building out of this. All right, we're gonna go ahead and do something we don't normally do, and that is, this is a 64-foot wall. Usually we cut it off at 56 foot, but first thing in the morning, we're feeling good. It's only a 14-foot wall, so I think we're good. We got straps on these 3 columns here in the middle. This will go up naturally with these columns, and then we're just gonna help lift up these ends. Probably the biggest struggle will be holding it level or plumb, while I'll just have to get out, and then we'll get your side or whatever, and then we'll go vice versa. We got screws, we're good. We got plate level and drill. So let's go ahead and lift this thing up. Just remember to always be on the edge, so if something were to happen, good, easy exit, right? Dude, that was smooth as butter.
Probably the easiest pick of our lives.
Dude, not bad for our second pick, huh? That was
the last one. Remember Gary?
Jerry?
Yeah.
Who's Jerry?
R.I.P. Jerry.
Who's Jerry?
Remember Gary?
That was awesome. That is the way that you want the pick to go. Nice, evenly balanced. The thing just goes up naturally, and that does showcase, I think, why it is so important to just build your post frame this way. We did all that work on the ground, and the machine just put it into place. So now we're gonna go ahead and get it fastened. We're just gonna make sure that this frost is off so it doesn't mess up our string. Are you plumb?
Yep.
You're plumb? Dang. Let me, all I'm gonna do is bump this column out, make sure it's plumb with our Stabila plate level, and I don't want to touch the line. I want to be just barely on it, and the reason you don't want to touch it is because if you touch this line, the next one's going to be out just microscopically more, because you're going to be pushing this line out, and down the line you can make yourself a nice little bow. So we always stay just off the line. Okay, that was extremely sad, guys. This is a 2-bar battery. Maybe it had 4 bars, but we're gonna have to get a new drill. Or a new battery. This thing is dead as doornail, DED. So what we've got here, these are some 1/4x3s, and these are SPACs. So I use a lot of GRK, but my column manufacturer, the Midwest Permacolumn bracket manufacturer, they send these out with the brackets, and it's just a lot easier to use what they have already spec'd. And we put one on the top and one on the opposite corner, and they're on both sides. So this is kind of the temporary hold. It's not the end-all structural hold that we're gonna do on this. So once we have our SPACs lags in there, those 1/4x3s, then we're gonna go ahead and drill a 1/2-inch hole from one side to the other and throw in some 1/2-inch bolts. And if you do this enough, it's not too difficult to line them up from one side to the other. Now, one thing that we always do is we make sure that on every bracket, these bolts are facing the same way, not just on each bracket, but on the entire wall. So we'll always come, this is the west side, we'll always come from the west and go out the east, just for a nice uniform look, even though this is gonna get an interior finish on it. Okay, now that ain't going nowhere, and I know people are always asking about these brackets, about the fact that they're wet set into concrete without a J hook on the bottom. Only thing I can say is I have footage somewhere. We messed up on one of these. We had to move it, and we couldn't pull it out without pulling the entire concrete pier out of the ground with a backhoe loader, and that was with a 1/2-inch bolt. We just hooked a chain around the bolt, yanked it, and this is not coming out without this coming out, and those things probably aren't coming out before these snap in half. So it's going to take a lot of force from Mother Nature, but this is a super strong connection, and when the diaphragm of the building is complete, it just really adds to the structural integrity and the fact that you won't have to worry about posts being 4 feet in the ground, rotting off over time. Here, you can line up your top. You can get it squared up. You ever heard that saying, put your best foot forward? Well, for us, it's put your best board on the bottom. And I just made that up. You like that? Yeah, I like it. We do that because we know that the most visible line on the building will be that wainscot line, the one that has that nice crisp trim line. It's right at like eye level. Everybody comes up to the building and they can kind of get over and just look right down it and confirm how nice the building is. So we always put our best boards at the bottom and at the top. So our fascia line or our soffit line is important, and our wainscot line is important. Lumber is never perfect, therefore we can't, we can't make every board dead on perfect. Let's get the first one on and we'll square it up. Now you can probably see this detail right here. This is on our corner column. And what we're doing is we're nailing off a block, and obviously this block is giving us additional shear strength when we set our truss right here. So because it's on the outside, we're putting 4 of these 20-penny ring shanks into that truss. And then once our steel diaphragm is applied to this whole end wall, it kind of becomes all in one. So the whole wall becomes one, and that truss is attached to all these columns just like all of our wall girts are. So we find it to be a very strong detail. There's not any worry about sag over time, because we are, we've got this block here for additional support. We've got this girt that's going to be underneath of it, and then you got to remember, once the steel is all applied to it, believe it or not, you could come through once it's done, cut one of these columns off, and it ain't going nowhere because that just rigidity of all those sheets of steel being screwed together, it can't really sag. The shear strength is quite high. Now, what I noticed was when I put these on, it's like my legs go from being, I wouldn't say irritated, but you know, like when you're cold, like you have that like kind of tingle feeling where like whatever. This almost like puts a warm blanket on them without being warm. It's like a,
blanket. Like,
yeah, the transit pants are where it's at. I will be needing to get like 5 pair.
It is the future.
It's the future. When somebody invented a microwave and said, dude, you no longer have to like cook your meal, like the world changed. Well, you no longer have to wear insulated pants underneath your bibs. And what's amazing is they're they're flexible, dude. I just climbed up on that wall and I'm bending over.
No resistance. Like,
yeah.
It's moved with you.
Yeah.
It becomes part of you.
It's not a sales ad for True Work, guys. They just are that good. And what they do really well is they build layerable systems. So, you know, you're gonna go spend, you know, I don't know, look at this saw. This saw cost me like $1,000 and it changed the way we cut our girts because it allows us to be amazingly efficient and accurate. Every cut is a perfect 90. And yeah, I'm not gonna get into everybody saying, oh, well, if you're a good carpenter, you'd cut a perfect cut every time. It's not gonna happen, guys. And this is rough carpentry, so a lot of people don't care. They don't do a perfect cut. What I'm getting at is that $1,000 right there for that tool. The gear, the bibs are, you know, maybe a couple $100, but they're gonna last you and they're gonna be on you every day if you work outside. So why would you not spend a couple $100 to be more comfortable, more efficient, and not to mention, I just think they look badass, so why not? From here, if you want, start taking that off at 8 foot, buddy. So that's a good tip. One of the things that we do to ensure that as we are constructing these walls on the ground, we try to keep them as square as possible. We already know that our layout, our brackets, we squared that up and it's precise. So we've got our grade mark on the bottom of our column, that line that we put down that was based off of the number that we shot with the laser. We make sure that is flush with the outside edge of our column. And then what we do is we measure the column off of our bracket on the end wall to be 7, 10 and a half. We know that's where we want it, and that makes sure that we're nice and square while we're constructing it, so when it goes up, it's not all wonky. Official term, wonky. All right, I'm up here framing this corner connection detail. 2 things I wanted to share. One is I've been asked to share how we frame our corners, and we always, you can see here, we've got one board that's overlapping and extending out 1.5 inches, and then we've got the other board that dies flush on the post edge. So our side walls, we always run the full dimension. So instead of cutting it back to 7, 10 and a half, so that, you know, the post is at 7, 10 and a half edge, but the building is at 8 foot edge. So everything is taken off of the exterior of this corner right here for the full dimension of the building. So this is a 64 foot wide or long building. So to the edge of this is 64 edge to edge, but our columns are 63 foot 9 inches. Anyway, I wanted to share that point, but when you're framing these up, the goal is you don't go off of where they're at, you put them where you want them. This lumber is about 3/8 shy from being on the face of this piece of 2x6 here, and I want it to be perfect. So the easiest way to do that for us, we drive a nail almost all the way in on the side that is in from where you want it, and then we're going to take another nail and get it set Now all you do is take another hammer and just crank it, just like that. You see that? And that's gonna put your board right where you want it. Another nice thing is with the Martinez, the side puller does give you just a little bit more leverage, and you gotta be careful you don't wanna pull your nail out. Wow, this is super awkward. So that puts the lumber right where you want it. Leverage is the name of the game in post frame. And when we're done, we got this nice, super crisp corner. And that's because we took the time to make it right, not just run it where it is. Well, there you go. If you can't see the benefit of building your walls on the ground, doing some preparatory work, everybody likes to just show up to the site and start building. And that's usually what I hear from other builders is, yeah, but when I don't do those piers, like I'm building walls the first day. You know, yes, we do have to come dig our holes, pour our brackets, or pour our pier, set our brackets. That usually takes us a day, so we lose that day. But when it comes to the actual construction of the walls, you know, this is all done in a morning. We can, and in good weather, we've put up 40 by 64 buildings, which is this building. We've put all the walls and the trusses up in one day, and it's not just about the quickness aspect of it, but everything is very precise. We don't have to go back and cut off the tops of our columns because maybe they're not exactly where we wanted them, and it's at least as perfect as we are as carpenters to make all of the correct marks, make all of the correct cuts, but it sure makes it a lot easier. Huh?
I got a string that's like...
Yeah, I see it, I see it, I see
You
it.
cut it off?
Yeah. Your price is way too high.
You need to cut it.
Now, when installing a door header on an end wall, you're not as much worried about structure. At least we aren't, because we use a structural end truss, and that means that the truss is made and designed, engineered to carry the load on the end. A lot of guys will just put an end truss on that's got the correct framing to fasten their steel, but it actually isn't engineered to really carry any load because they're relying on their end columns. I personally never know down the road if somebody's gonna put a door on their end wall. It's very easy to do, so it's something that guys do. So we just, across the board, every truss is structural, and that means we don't have to worry too much about the specific header on our end doors. It's more of, we use a couple 2x12s for blocking on the back side of our door for the tracks, the springs, and all that good stuff. But keep going right there about. Yeah, leave that right there for now. That side, Greg, is gonna have to come downhill. That whole column's gotta come downhill. Yeah, man. Oh my God, not that much, dude. No, go back, down, down, down. Right there, hold that. Thank you, appreciate that. Okay, give me a crank. I need this column cranked. I'm out of square up here, Greg. Let's bring that guy back to square. You good?
Yeah, it should be.
You like it?
Should be good. Yeah. Hit it.
All right, yeah, go ahead and find center there. Should be 6 foot.
From inside, right?
Yeah, 6 foot from the inside. Should be center.
Center, so we're only going one?
Go 6 foot 3/4.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I've got this square here.
Wow, dude.
That's nice, isn't it? I'd probably come off the bottom, dude. Come off the bottom.
I agree.
got a
Screw?
screw for your bro?
Got a couple. If
Okay.
you want 'em.
I just want 2.
Put them
All right, I'll
in your
put
pouch.
these in my pouch for later.
Save 'em for later.
You're a nice guy. All right, what's our bottom look like? Here, take this guy, run it on the bottom. Tell me when?
Yeah, dude.
Got it. We're gonna have to lift it up, guys, and bring it back because it's gonna catch those. So come on this bottom and just lift it up.
Go ahead.
That's pretty good, huh?
Save it, yeah.
I love it, man. I just honestly wish Kubota would make a JCB. Or JCB just needs to get the same controls as Kubota.
I've been thinking, like, have you ever seen a garbage can with a latch on the lid so, like, your dog or your animal can't, like, get into it? Like, seriously, like,
Yeah.
You have?
Usually square lids, and it's like a Rubbermaid type thing, and that the handle like goes and it latches over the side.
Like a garbage can, for a garbage can, though?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'll do it.
Did you just think you had like $1 million idea or something?
No, I was just thinking, like, you know how, like, you had, like, the foot pedal for, like, the flip-up lid?
All right.
What if it was, like, the same idea, but instead, like, when you push down, it, like, unlatched, like, the lid?
We are at the point now where we're able to start trussing, and our trusses got delivered this morning. We use mainly a company out of Rockford, Illinois called Atlas Truss, and there's an engineer there, Carl, that's just a super good dude, does a great job engineering what we want and what we've come up with over the years. I'll show you here, I'll flip you around. So these trusses, first off on the top, you can see what I mean by structural end frames. So you see those horizontal girts, those are running through our truss so we can nail our steel on a nice like 2-foot or 30-inch stagger, and that does change on the trusses. I could probably specify that a little better, but I kind of leave it up to my engineer. But then what you'll notice is these guys here, these structural webs that are going, you know, making the triangles, that's where the strength comes in this truss, and it's the exact same as all of our intermediate trusses. Now, another thing to note on our trusses are these ends. So you can see how big they are. That's 15 and a half inches. And what it does is it gives you a good connection at the truss to post connection there at the top. We already talked about how on our 3-ply laminated columns, we're able to set that truss in between the 2 outer plies, and then we are able to, you'll see later on in the videos, where we drill 2 1/2-inch through bolts, top and bottom of that heel, and that's gonna give us a lot of strength. So when the wind is pushing on the side of our building, that connection detail is helping resist a lot of that load, and we're not doing knee bracing. Instead, we're spending a little bit more money on our truss engineering. However, the thing to note is that everything that I try to do, not saying I do it well or do it perfect, but everything I try to do is simplify our labor process. I'll spend more money on materials or machinery, as you've seen, if it means that my labor is cheaper. And I say that because not that I don't want to spend money on labor. I mean, I don't. I want to run a business. I want everybody to make money. But when you have to work less to do the same task, you can get more done, and you feel better about that process when you are done. So as a worker, when you know you have to like do this tedious work like a knee brace, it's just a fatiguing thing mentally. So I think by doing the truss connection detail that way, we're able to put our bolts through and forego having to cut and install knee bracing. So now we're ready to go ahead and put those trusses up. We'll get that end truss mounted first to the end columns, and then we'll work our way outwards. And the thing to remember is that you want to start straight, end straight. So spend a little time on that first bay of trusses, make sure it's straight, make sure you've got things locked down, and then work your way out through the rest of the building.